Do marketers that need to revamp their marketing styles? When it comes to social media, is traditional marketing answer anymore in the first place? To answer such questions, I would like to welcome up to the stage our next panelists who are going to be talking about marketers. Should you ditch old rule books for the age of Instagram Reels? And help you all to understand the future of marketing, enhance engagement, higher conversion rates, and much more. So our moderator for this session is going to be Her Highness Sadia Tengku Jadiah Abang, CEO and Managing Director of Twin Rams Media Group OPC. Please come up to the stage. Pleasure to have you here. And our next panelists, we have it's a big group, this one, so it should be a dead interesting discussion. Can't wait for it. Aditya Diwan, founder and creative director of Madhouse Media. Harry Tarbak, founder and CEO of Servo Creatives. Maha Abdul Rahman Al-Balushi, owner and chief strategist, Key Marketing. Mona Mohammed Abul Hassan, Associate Business Director, Publicis Media, Digitas, and Kamran Khan, COO of Arabian Entertainment Company. If you'd all like to come up to the stage then, please.
So I'd just like to welcome everybody for joining us today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And for everyone here, actually, that's going to be joining, I believe you guys should probably take a double shot espresso right now because it's going to be a while. But nevertheless, I hope you can stay a little bit longer and learn a thing or two about what we're going to talk about. All right? So basically, at this day and age, social media has been playing a very pivotal role in terms of marketing and how we actually relate our message as marketers ultimately. And the first part of our discussion is just to come up with the definition of what traditional marketing is, right? In the essence of what we're going to be talking about at this point, and also like how do we define them, and what would be like for individuals in here who's joining me as panels, what do you think are those traditional marketing strategies that perhaps may not be relevant at this point or could be still relevant, right? And how it ultimately would help us also, again, in achieving our overall marketing goals. So I just want to ask first, everybody here, before we get started, to introduce themselves. So let's get started with you, Mr. Yes.
Hi, my name is Aditya Diwan. I run a creative boutique in India called Madhouse Media. We basically label ourselves as a creative boutique because we do all kinds of creative services out there. With that being said, our strength is content. So,
Hi everyone, my name's Harry. I run a creative agency called Servo. Everything from sort of photography and video related, all throughout sort of social media bits and pieces, and influencer stuff on the side as well. So yeah, a bit of everything really.
Awesome. Yes.
See, before introducing myself, I think the problem with marketeers is always when our tummies are full, we are not good at delivering, and hence you see a very thin attendance here. Regardless, the good side is that the real marketeers are the ones who are actually even performing after having their tummy fulls. Myself, Kamran Khan, I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Arabian Entertainment Company based out of Saudi Arabia. We are into international restaurant franchise. Apart from that, I'm also the founder of Eat and Stays, which is an online hospitality media platform. Thank you.
Amazing. Nice to meet you guys. Hi guys, my name is Mona Abul Hassan. I am currently the digital lead for Digitas, a Publicis Group company. As an agency, we're a digital transformation agency that services different pillars to connect everything together. So from digital media, which is my expertise, with different team members across customer experience, strategy, creative, technology.
Hi everyone, my name is Maha Al-Balushi. I am owner and chief strategist of Key Marketing. It's a marketing agency based in Oman, Muscat, where I come from. And I am also a university lecturer in marketing.
All right, so that's a full house in here. All right, so before we get started, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Tengku Hadia Abang. I'm the CEO of Twin Rams Media and also currently the global marketing strategist for Samsung Electronics for their subsidiary Samsung Electromechanics. So overall, I'm in charge of global marketing and have translated all types of marketing campaigns in like 160 plus languages and in any parts of the world. So go figure. Anyway, so let's get this thing started. First, just basically the subject we would be discussing, just to give you a ground base of what we're going to be talking about. The panel discussion is, marketers, should we ditch old rule books for the age of Instagram Reels? So that's basically going to be the subject. And for the first question, going back again, how do you define old marketing rule books? And what are, for you, those old marketing rule books? So I'd like to hear first the gentleman on my left.
I mean, see, for me, I come from a country which is primarily and will always be dependent on the old marketing rule books. And for me, old marketing rule books would be, a strategy where you've got more dependency on television, you've got more dependency on radio, you've got more dependency on newspapers, and such media platforms for your brands and your advertising, rather than having more dependency on social media. So, I mean, for that'll be my dependency.
Anybody else would like to add? Yes? Harry?
Yeah, I'll touch on it a little bit. I think especially recently is the whole reason why we're talking about this today is that there wasn't
Absolutely.
a rule book as such.
Yeah.
It was, especially with Instagram that we're going to talk a lot more about, there wasn't a rule book as such. It was more a platform where you could just share what you're up to with friends and family and things like that. But only recently, over the past sort of 5 years, it's so important for businesses to be relevant on Instagram.
In essence, it kind of made it, it became a democratized access, right, for everybody. It's not just like filtered through like specific, like agenda or platforms, and if you don't qualify for that, you can't enter. So it removed the barrier for entry for marketing overall. Yes?
See, I think before dwelling any further in the topic, one of the things that we as marketeers, should try to be very clear in our minds is what actually, or how actually do we define that old rule book?
Yes.
That's very critical, I think. When we say, if I have to put things into perspective, and if we say that the old rule books, or giving some examples, putting out, advertisements in newspapers, half page, quarter page, or putting up, having TV commercials, or having a PR out there in the newspapers, if that is considered to be the old rule book, I'm afraid to say that, we are confused and we're mistaken. And unfortunately, a lot of times, a lot of marketeers do confuse this. And the reason I'm saying, because the examples that I just gave are merely tools of that rule book. The rule book still remains the same. We have evolved. So giving an example, if I'm sure, most of us remember the old days of pager,
Yes,
where we're
absolutely.
using for different communications. If I ask you a question, is anybody still using a pager? And the answer would be definitely no. But if I have to put it this way, that if you pick up the iPhone or the smartphone that we're using, the purpose that it's delivering is still the same, which is communication. So the tool has changed. It was a pager, and now it has become an iPhone or smartphone, whatever you want to call it. But the objective really remains the same. So the rule book in that sense is still essential, because I think the problem, what happens in recent times, what I've observed in most of I've been associated with a lot of consulting industry as well, is that the marketing department in these companies often confuse marketing with advertisement. And that happens a lot, actually. And all these things that we are talking about are very good, essential. So social media and digital media are also a very essential, very important, very energetic tool of marketing. But we can't really define them as the sole marketing. So just to summarize, the old rule book, I think, is still very much valid. It's just that the tools of the rule books have evolved.
Absolutely, it's super interesting to hear the very different points of view based on the industries. I also have a different one from my perception, since Of course, like you highlighted, Reels is a trend. We need to be relevant, yes, but it's one element out of the bigger picture. So from traditional media, there are a lot of brands and advertisers that this is still essential for them. But if I am to classify my perception of the old rulebook referred here, it would be traditional digital advertising versus the new trend on digital ecosystems. So there are the tried and tested best practices across YouTube, across social. This is new. How do we tap into it? Does it replace? Does it complement? This is what we'll be discussing today.
Yeah, for me, when I look at it generally, like I look at the rules and I look at the old marketing rules, for example. Like, for example, when we say, one of the rules that comes on top of my head is rule number 7, which says that for a customer to make a purchase, they have to come across your product or your advertisement at least 7 times. So when I try to evaluate that and apply it in today's marketing, or this fast world, I sometimes wonder if really the customer needs to go through these 7 advertisements to make that purchase. And I also think in a world of digital marketing, and taking Instagram as an example specifically, when a customer comes across an ad for the first time, and then he goes to your social media page, so your Instagram page, and there he has like different ideas, material, maybe testimonials, sometimes even public figures talking about that product. So from there, I think he builds quickly that maybe trust, which he needs to maybe have developed before, back in the days, during these 7 times. So these rules maybe applies, but differently. And that's what we need to do as marketeers, is to just to understand how to maybe flip, change, or modernize these rules to apply in today's world.
Absolutely. I'd like to add into that, the traditional marketing foundations of like product, pricing, people, the 4 Ps, I forget the last P, but, things like that. It's still very relevant to this day and age. And we use that as a framework of our strategies whenever we target, like we just get into a new market, right? And we are still struggling in terms of just fully identifying the target customer of that particular market. Especially on my field, which is a lot more B2B. So chances are we use that as a foundational framework for us to be able to actually like execute that ideas or like series of ideas that we have in mind into a digital campaign. Same thing as like how BAF, the benefits, benefits, features and advantages, right, in terms of product marketing. The same still goes into like your product landing pages. It still reflects in some way in how you arrange your ideas and how your copy will be reflecting that later down the line. So ultimately, I don't necessarily think that it is, either or. It could be, a synergy of both, which we would be discussing the second point, ladies and gentlemen. Second point is, can you cite some examples or scenarios where such, aforementioned old rule books are broken to make way for the current trends?
I mean, see, the biggest example which comes to my head is Instagram Reels, for that matter. As soon as Instagram Reels came into picture, a lot of brands started breaking a lot of rules. And a lot of marketers also started using Instagram as a main platform to market their clients. Whereas, see, I understand Instagram is not at all a bad platform. I'm not against that platform. But also, coming back to the question, the point is there are a lot of times you've broken rule books. Not just on Instagram, other social platforms also, YouTube also. You've got YouTube podcasts happening. You've got other ways of, marketing your brand happening, which a lot of times do subside from the old rule books. You come up with new strategies because there is a lot of competition on other socials also. You come up with basic strategies, come up with a lot of strategies for your clients to make them look on top, because your clients also want the same thing. Your clients no longer care about the old rule book as well. So they themselves want to trend on social media, right? So that's why they will come up with their requirements which they would want you to trend on social media. They would want your help to trend them on social media. So I feel in general, not just Instagram or not just any particular platform in general, we've had a lot of rule books being broken because of this.
Any thoughts, Harry?
I think that the main difference with the change of rule books as such is that content nowadays has got to be quick, it's got to be responsive. And it means that there aren't any rules. It almost means as if for a lot of businesses, that a lot of the clients that I have, we've got to be really quick with content. We've got to stay relevant, and we've got to produce content that people want to see quickly. I think with Instagram sort of following in TikTok's guidelines, especially with Reels, things that are recent are the most important. So it's difficult trying to sort of break down that sort of sign-off process with bigger clients. That is really difficult.
Anything else?
So I think, I would agree with one of the statements that you made. The only rule, I think that, there is no rule. Every rule out there, I think, has been broken. So if we just try to go back a little bit, during the days of, Facebook, when Facebook was on fire, and, every marketer used to have, you have to have a Facebook account for your company or for your brand, and, you have to have a strategy for Facebook. And then again, without really discrediting or discounting, Facebook, not dwelling in that subject. But then again, if you see the importance of Facebook today, in the marketing world, it's not that relevant what it used to be. And I think before that, I'm not a very, very tech-savvy person, but if you look before Facebook, platforms like Orkut or, all those kind of stuff. So I think, evolving, perhaps if we say, is really the right word. Let me bring in an example of a case study, an actual case study that, I was lucky to be a part of that project. We conducted a study on almost 30 to 35 food and beverage companies in Middle East, between two countries, Saudi Arabia and UAE. And what we were trying to find out is really this particular subject we're talking about, and this was a few years back, is that those companies who were heavily focused, and remember that I'm talking about food and beverage companies, which is essentially restaurant companies. So those companies that were very heavily focused, or rather only focused around social media or digital media strategy, versus those companies that had proper functioning marketing department, whereby social and digital media were only a platform. What we found out in terms of results, and we measured it in different ways, I'm just trying to summarize here, but what we found out is that 75% of the companies that were rather more focused on the overall marketing were faring much better in terms of performance and sales. If we dig in a little bit more deeper, and I'm particularly talking about, let's say, again, the F&B companies, we talk about, positioning, pricing, customer segmentation, customer satisfaction. Can you really build a strategy or get the desired result by using social or any social or digital media platform? Not that I'm against it, and derive results for any of these components that I just mentioned, be it positioning, pricing, or customer segmentation? The answer is no. But the answer would be yes if we say that we use these platforms as tool very smartly. Then the answer would be, would be a big yes. So again, to your question, I think there have been a lot of instances, where we can prove the case. But I would really go back to the point, and I think it would be a little bit harsh to say, I get a little bit offensive, when somebody says, trashing or ditching away the old rule book. I think the old rule book, there is nothing like old and new. The rule book is the rule book for marketing, for those real marketers who do understand. And if they use the social digital media as tool smartly, I think those companies or those marketers will be the winner.
Mona?
Aligned. We're all, absolutely. I mean, it's not breaking the rules to tap into new territory, right? You just have to test everything from a digital point of view and from a marketeer's point of view, as well as about testing, learning with the right measurement in place that is business-centric. So there are studies that you can attribute to your campaigns to measure actual business outcomes and how they contribute to your business. Yes, they are a tool within the ecosystem, but they contribute to the growth of the business, or they should. If they're not, we're doing something wrong and we need to fix it, right? So that's from brand lift studies that you can do through the key platforms online or through third-party researchers like Nielsen, like Kantar, that can actually go back into your data and define what ROI those channels are driving. So we need to constantly evolve with the new trends. We need to test, we need to see what works for us as a brand and take it from there. Just one thing before I hand over to you, from Harry, what you said, we have to act fast, yes. This is our industry, we need to cater to the new trends, but it's super important to just consider the communication that we would do from traditional media, from a content versus Reels, has to be catered to the platform. So Instagram as a platform is short-form content, of course, that we all know, but it's also inspiration-led versus a TikTok, which is entertainment-led. Facebook is your close connection. So each platform within the digital ecosystem, communication-wise, or the mindset of the consumer is different when they're on it. And it's super important to factor that in when you're deciding on how to connect with that audience.
Yeah, for me, when I think about the word ditching, I think it's a very big word. Like, I wouldn't use ditching rules at all. But I think, as I said previously, is to modernize, to work with my clients in a way where I understand the culture I'm working with, the customer, the type of product, and try to mix the rules with the tools that we have today, taking into consideration all of these different facts. Like, for example, I used to work with, as a client, one of my clients was Awasar. It's a telecom company. And they started back in 2015 in Oman. And they were only with home broadband. And they wanted to position themselves as the fastest internet in Oman. So we remember back in the days, we were having these discussions, and maybe a lot of people would think, well, we're talking about the internet, so it's more like about, it's a serious product. We need to focus on, let's say, maybe all these people. Whereas the agency and our point of view was completely the opposite. We thought if we're talking about fast internet, we need to focus more into the younger generation, which plays games, because these are the people that needs fast internet. And in today's world, maybe the mother and father isn't really caring that much about which internet they will use, as long as the teenagers are happy. And mostly they're the ones that makes, you know, such decisions, let's say. So to come up with a new kind of like maybe campaigns, new ideas that doesn't really go with what usually, especially in my country, that telecom companies would do and the way they target certain customers. It's, again, it's a way of modernizing and understanding your product and understanding your customers. I think what we really need to do is just, in a way or another, try to understand that the world now is very fast, but also not to forget the basics we need to deliver. So, yeah.
Completely agree on that. Just to give you guys a tip, when you're working in a global conglomerate, not a lot of decision makers are, you know, the same age, right? So chances are they're a bit older, they don't really fully understand what are the things that, you know, like teenagers or people, you know, like on a buying age would actually like spend time on. And one of the very important factors for you to be able to reconcile, especially when you're talking to a business strategy, business development team, and you're getting your budgets approved. So one of the very important things is that actually to go back to the traditional rule books. As a point of reference in terms of being able to explain certain concepts or ideas you guys want to pitch. Because ultimately for them, you know, social media platforms, email marketing are all just amplification distribution channels, right? So when those like traditional rule book that we're talking about is explained properly, they would fully support and understand regardless of what is the channel that you're going to be using to make things happen. So it's very important because just recently, like a few weeks ago, I started creating a strategy for 2023. And obviously, the CEO is like 65 years old, and I have to like defend what is my program for the upcoming like 2023 campaign. And one of which is like I would start a B2B hybrid website for the company, so that we're not just relying simply for B2B, sales representative, but ultimately right now they can already purchase the product directly, even if it's still B2B in its essence. So what we did is to explain to them why the traditional framework is just going to be expanded and mimicked, in the digital platform through digital campaigns and whatnot, and therefore it still complements the existing mechanisms they have for their business. It's not really going off the line for that. And I think that's something that we can all agree on. It's very important, especially when we try to relay our ideas to the decision makers and also reconcile that to how we're going to reach individuals on a grassroots level. So third question that I'd like to ask is, do you recall some moments or time in your careers where rule book breaking, this traditional strategies yielded any positive results?
I mean, see, we've had this discussion right now that we've had rules changed. We've ditched old rules. But yes, I would give it to social media and the new tools of marketing that has become more easier for brands to market themselves. It's become more accessible for brands to market themselves to a larger audience. You've got lesser budgets and you can go and appeal to a master tool of audience. I mean, we primarily have a lot of clients who work with us in India who primarily target on their social medias. And we've handled all of their social channels. So, it's become more easier for us to target a particular geography, to target a particular area in India or outside India, sitting in a particular place. You might not have to spend a larger amount of budgets. You might not have to go overboarded with your pockets. And just the accessibility is higher in such old new books. Plus, you've got more brand awareness. And people tend to rely on social media for brand authentication. So, yeah.
Harry, is there any point in time where you actually, I believe you have, with the nature of your business, yeah.
I have a particular client that is really tricky with content-wise, and the work that I do with them is to bid on, it's usually video work that is used to bid on work-winning pieces. And every time that we work together, it has to be quite basic and, very simple videos with, talking head interviews and just sort of really boring videos. And we broke the rules with that, and we produced a really nice sort of short form piece of content that was completely the opposite of everything that we'd done previous. And that went on to be one of the biggest project wins that they've done. It's for a project that I can't really talk about too much, but it's £90 million in the UK. A really, really interesting project that will be coming out next year. And I think that's all testament to just doing something different.
Yeah, so I think, I think all of us, as marketeers have experienced, something positive coming out of, again, I wouldn't use the word of, ditching the old rule book, but I think, again, I would say, evolving. And the best case example could be, in the old days where we used to, put an advertisement in a newspaper, or, inserting flyers in the newspapers, and you're, let's say as an example, if you're doing flyers in the newspapers, you're printing, 100,000 or 200,000, depending on the circulation of the newspaper. And the best way that you could measure was only by looking at the spike, in your sales, as an example. If there was an upward spike or there was, it was a downward fall, then we know what was the effect. And that was, again, best case guess, if you can put it that way. Well, today, the flip side, the good thing, the positive thing is that with things like programmatic ads, you can really pinpoint target, and I would quote an example in a moment. But you can really, in terms of number of clicks and CTR and conversion rate, all those things, every cent, every dollar can be accounted for. And that's really the beauty of it. To an extent, funny enough, I was sitting with a client a couple of weeks back, a friend of mine, as a matter of fact, and they did programmatic ads. And the old age CEOs, and they were like, you spent almost $20,000, 20 grand in programmatic ads. I haven't seen really our ad on Google or Instagram. I haven't seen, but people are saying it's there. And the marketeer was, my friend was trying to convince that, okay, I'll show you the report. So he communicated this problem back to the agency, and the agency came up with a solution. I think we could have discussed in the, ethical and unethical panel discussion that we're having. So the agency did a very smart thing. I don't know if it's smart or not, but they actually asked the physical address of the office, where that company was based, and said, we're going to do the ads like, in that particular area, so that your management, your colleagues, your employees actually see the ad, and they did, as a matter of fact. Now, let's forget the debate of being, it being an ethical or unethical practice, but again, the point is really that it is so targeted, so pinpointed, that if you really build the right strategy around it, I think there are a lot of benefits that you could get out of it. But again, the point that I would stress is that do not for a moment think that social or digital marketing is your entire marketing platform, is your entire marketing strategy. That was not the case, that is not the case, and that will never be the case. You have to have, I think one of the panelists in the morning was discussing about, there wasn't sufficient time or thoughts given by marketeers to post-COVID. And that is really a very important point. Because consumer behavior, thought process has changed post-COVID. Their pattern of buying, their sentiments have changed. So really, a lot of work, onus lies on us marketeers to really dig in again in the consumer behavior and see what's going on, what are the trends, and then build on that. And again, social digital media can be used as tool to, build the strategy from there onwards.
Amazing. I think from what you were highlighting about the current, what we were discussing in the morning post-pandemic and everything, yes, the landscape has changed so much, our behavior has changed so much, and while on top level, we might think that we're connected as ever, but actually it's made us more disconnected than ever. How many of us are sitting at home with our family, but sitting on our phone with friends? Same thing. So it's just made it that much harder also to connect with marketeers, with our consumers in the right way, with the right communication and so on. And with that, things like Instagram Reels and new trends enable us to break into that new space where they're actually still in a leaned-in stage. So the example I'm going to give is actually an Instagram Reel specific test that we did for one of our brands, because part of our partnership with Meta, and we have a global learning agenda. This is one of the test topics that we are intended to do. So with that, it's basically a methodology of a study with our campaign. It's a awareness campaign for an FMCG brand, and our usual placements on Meta is automated placement, so that enables better performance across the different feed, allows the platform itself to optimize to the outcome that we set it out to do. In order to test the impact of Reels, the methodology of that test is to do a multi-cell brand lift study, which is essentially an equal split with an exposed and control group being exposed to Reels on one side, and then the business as usual campaign on the other side, to determine the impact from the key metrics, be it media metrics as well as business metrics on ad recall, consideration, and purchase intent. We've done this test twice. The first time we saw slight increases in the brand lift metrics for real placements. The second time in a different market, there was no lifts. By no lifts, I mean equal performance between business as usual and Reels. However, from a media metric point of view, the video completion rates and that we saw from Reels was much higher. So the conclusion that we got from this is definitely Reels is a valuable placement to have, but it's not your holistic strategy by any means. It needs to be in the mix, and we need to cater to it right, and yes, it will add value.
So as Mona was saying, with social media, we usually use it to contact our friends, follow people that we know, and see all the updates on their lives. And I think us as a marketeers, one of the things that we always try to do is to get to our customers in their daily routine. So if I know that Mona, for example, works from, let's say, 9 to 5, and then she has like that 1 hour break, then I'll try to reach Mona on that 1 hour break, because I know she will be on her social media, she's scrolling, she's having fun, and then that's when I think the new media comes, that we try to attract Mona not in a kind of like selling way, but more creative, more kind of like getting into her routine, giving her something fun to watch. And also sometimes, let's say when we get out of these very strict rules, because for me as a university lecturer, I teach my students based on marketing school and based on the books. But when it comes to also trying to mix and trying to reflect the rules on real life, I try to show them, especially on my courses, because I'm very interested in Instagram specifically, and I run a course on how to market on Instagram. I always say that on Instagram, you're building a culture. Because let's say I'm talking about healthy food, and I have 10,000 followers. All of this 10,000 followers actually a culture that loves healthy food, that cares about health. So, and that's something very new that back in the days, we couldn't really do something like that. And because social media and Instagram specifically has different features, so we should treat different feature differently. So when we look at story, for example, that's something will just stay for 24 hours and people can interact with it. So shall we treat it in a very formal way, which I am against? I think we should be very lean. We should be very, let's say, maybe friendly in the way we talk to our consumers when it comes to stories. So maybe ask them about the weather, ask them about the match, and get more like to maybe show people in the company, so people kind of get attached to you as an organization. It's not just the product anymore. Because if I want the product, I don't have to follow the company. But following the company, it's more about building that culture around your product and your organization. So I think also when we look at the new features, there is a new feature Instagram just launched, which is leave a note. And a lot of people were making fun, like we're going back to BlackBerry world, like, you know. But I think it's also very nice because we can use it for announcements. When we want to announce something specifically for people that we are follow and they're following us back, and we want to just catch their eye on maybe a 24 hours offer or something very instant, or that we have in the next 2 hours there is a free session. So all of these different features, we can really try to tailor them using, again, the rules that we have learned from marketing to deliver the best that we can.
Another question I'd like to follow up, guys, is that there's a lot of individuals still, especially like, you know, global companies who are still a bit apprehensive, right, in terms of like fully investing in digital materials and, you know, like non-traditional models. How do you, as a person who's like running an agency, right, what are the common, you know, like whatchamacallit, like what are the common resistance that you guys experience as towards to like, you know, like people and like traditional guys, you know, investing into digital? I'd like to know that, and perhaps you can share it to everyone. And how do you know, like how do you rebut that? How do you address that and make sure that their investment is actually worthwhile?
I mean, see, it's important for you to, a lot of times when a company goes all out on digital, a lot of times the trend becomes very monotonous. For example, an Instagram reel is going to trend there's going to be a trend, you're going to have it for a month, you'll have every brand following that. So a lot of times when a lot of brands go all out on digital, there's a very high chance of monotony happening. So as marketers, I feel it's very important for us to understand to strike a balance between the perfect balance between should you go old school or should you go out school. Like I have the statement which I always will believe, just because we have flat screen TVs does not mean we forget the old RGB tube TVs, right? So we all have to realize as marketers that there is a route we start from, there is a place we start from. So if your client wants to go all out, I feel it's very important for us to make him understand the balance between what is going to work for him. If, for example, he's going to enter into a market, for example, if it's an Indian brand, it's going to enter into a market which is more targeted by rural, which is more ruled by rural population. As a result, social media might not work for him. As a result, Instagram or TikTok or whatever might not work for him, but an old school marketing route will. So it's important for us to understand what is the correct TG is going to, what is the audience he's appealing to, and then maybe pitch him a strategy accordingly.
Harry?
Yeah, I think, like you said, and we've all said really, it's sort of as and now. You know, it's very important to be investing into digital. I think, especially into social media. But there are lots of other things that you've got to consider as well. And the investment into digital is really difficult. Trying to convince board members that don't really care about digital and social media as such, and content for digital platforms is really, really tricky. But it's worth it. At the moment, we're seeing a big trend with Reels, obviously on Instagram, but it's always going to be changing. We look back to 2 years ago, 3 years ago, before sort of this short form vertical content was so big. There wasn't anything to be seen in that space. So everything is changing all the time. So it's just important to, I think, invest into digital and invest into good, high quality content, and to just see what's happening and try and be relevant at the time.
Cameron? Yeah.
I think, I would say first, what we can agree is really the topic of our panel should have been maybe instead of ditching the old rule book,
Yeah.
evolving marketing and still loving the old rule book.
Absolutely.
No, I think, the question that you asked, I think it's very imperative and extremely important that the marketeers in their company also own up the responsibility of educating the importance of social digital media. That's critically important. Number one. Number two, what really are the objectives that particular company or brand is looking for? Is it engagement? Is it sales? Is it awareness? What is it? I mean, there could be a set of different objectives. So it really needs to be defined, because otherwise the first bullet that's going to come and hit the head is why my sales is still the same. And that you would hear from typically a lot of CEOs or COOs. So when I was heading the marketing department for my company, I used to get challenged a lot of times by my CEO and the top management, by the board. So why the sales is not picking up, and what's happening? Well, playing a little bit of devil, when I'm on this side of the table, when I'm the CEO, I'm posing the same challenges and questions to the marketing department. But again, jokes apart, the fact of the matter is that our objectives should be very, very clear. The strategy should be very, very clear. I think what Harry mentioned is it's very important that yes, we should seriously consider investing in these good tools, but again, we should know why we are investing and where we are investing. That's critically important, and that's the only way I think we can. It's going to take some time. Again, it's a gradual shift that's going to happen. The old guard will understand the relevance of these new tools that we have today, the ever-evolving tools. So every day there is something new, so it's going to take time. But I think it's high time that instead of getting frustrated, marketeers should really own that responsibility and educate. As a part of education, the board, even though it's going to be slightly challenging, or the CEOs, about the relevance, that these are our set of objectives. This is the strategy what we are going to follow. This is how much time, anticipated time, we should, expect, by which, we can see this change. So all these KPIs or deliverables should be crystal clear. Otherwise, we as marketeers will keep going back to that, frustrated corner and trying to grab a few cents or dollars for the social digital media.
Absolutely, that was right. On point, Cameron. Mona. Say I'm a person who doesn't like social media and whatnot, right? And you're convincing me right now. Why would I invest in socials? Something like that.
I mean, look, everything needs to be relevant and suitable to the business goals, and we need to be where our audience is. So to your points, you guys highlighted audiences, you highlighted business goals. If your brand or your market is not fit for digital, then it's not. However, it's important to consider within the digital ecosystem the depth of data that is available. If you just allow, or because I'm going back to the traditional type of mindset from a partner that potentially does not, or is not receptive to digital. So in that case, it's really important to just challenge an agency, challenge anybody within the digital ecosystem with your brief, with what you want to achieve. There's a strategy for that. And any whys or hows have responses back with feedback, with data, and it's worth exploring, right? So at the end of the day, if I'm, let's say, a toothpaste brand or a chocolate, if someone is searching for me, I want to be there. And that's a simple example from a data point of view. On a wider scale, there's a lot more from a persona point of view that is only tracked from a digital ecosystem. So we can really, really, really connect with people on another level from there, but it's step by step. It's not an all in or nothing, by no means.
Well, I'm just like thinking now out loud, yeah, because
That's what I've been doing.
go ahead. Yes, like me and you, we had this discussion later over lunch, reflecting on the session about niche. And I was saying, like, I come from Oman, and the population is just 5 million. So if I pick a niche, I'll end up with 1 or 2 clients. So I can't really do that. So looking at, like, the various clients and different industries that I worked with, some of my clients are business to customers. And for business to customers, to me, sometimes it's important to be on social media. And it's really important to, because it's just a small value. It's not really a high value purchase. So customers can make these such decisions really fast. So if he sees an ad of a burger, he can just go and order it on Talabat and it's done. But when I look at business to business, and especially back in the days, we used to think business to business is more about meetings. It's about like pitch. We don't really have to be on social media. But now when I talk to my clients, and correct me if I'm wrong, I usually tell them, no, you need to be on social media. You need to be on LinkedIn, for example. Then they'll be like, why? And for me, I think I'm applying the rule of saying, like, usually as individuals, when we go to buy something, we buy what's most familiar to us. So if today I'm traveling to China, and I've never been to China, and I go to like a store to buy a shampoo, for example, and I'll see different brands, and then I'll see Head and Shoulders, I'll pick the one I know because I know it. And this is what I say to my business-to-business clients. Like, if you are out there, and then we go for a pitch, and the person in front of us saw us before, he will feel familiar. He would want to listen to us more because he has seen us before. It's not his first time. So I think in today's world, we need to have that mix of, first of all, understanding our clients and to know how to deliver, especially in the culture you're living in. But also when I look the other way around, like, do I advise a small restaurant to be on TV? I would say no. So not everyone, I think from my perspective, not every business in today's world, they need to be on the old media, let's say, like TV, radio, newspaper. But I think it's the other way around for most of the businesses. But that's, again, just thinking out loud. Maybe if I go back to and study it further, I'll be like, oh, no, I was mistaken. But that's really what I think on spot, yeah.
Awesome. So let's go on to the dark side, right? So we've talked about the benefits of just basically putting forward, ditching the old rule book, and then potentially transitioning to digital, vice versa. On the other side of things, what do you guys, based just in your experience, substantial experience obviously, do you recall some moments or times in your careers where rule book breaking or ditching these traditional strategies have yielded a bit of a, negative result?
I mean, yeah, I particularly do because a lot of times, when you tell a client to invest on social, a lot of clients have seen, they think that in the next 2 months, they're going to have bonkers amount of sales. The banks are going to be full with money and they're going to be all out with products. And a lot of times it's very difficult for us to make them understand that it's going to take time. So a lot of times I've had experiences with one particular client. That client has given us the most difficult times in 3 months. Because every 15 days, I used to get a call from that client saying, I'm not getting more sales, I'm not getting more sales, I'm not getting more sales. So it's very irritating for us, and I mean, it's very hard on agencies to make their clients understand that it's going to take time. It's a slow process. It's not going to shoot overnight. And for example, you give a newspaper ad today, it's not going to give you crores of sales the next day, right? It's going to take time for people to register your brand. So I mean, yeah, this particular example which I've had is clients think their sales are going to go up, which is not going to happen.
That's the curse of people believing that when you go digital, automatically you'll get viral marketing, right? What about you, Harry?
I have worked with a very tricky brand in the past that was. We did try and change the rules. We did try and change the rule book on some content that was working really, really well. The brand was it was a company that was selling COVID testing kits back in 2020, and we had a really good system with digital ads set up, fresh sort of content coming in every couple of weeks. And the ads that we were running on Facebook at the time and through Instagram as well were brilliant. We were getting a really high return on ad spend over there, and it was really, really good. And the product was great as well, which was the most important thing at the time. And just switching it up didn't work. Unfortunately, changing the rule book with that really didn't work, unfortunately. So it is a step-by-step process with changing things up, especially with socials and digital in general. Yeah.
What about you, Kamran?
I'll give a very quick and peculiar example where I think we have, if we have, I think your question was, where we have ditched the rule book and the results were negative, if that's what you asked. A very peculiar example is virtual events. And I think we all got so much in love with the virtual events during the pandemic time. This is the future, this is how it's going to happen, and this is cool, this is lovely. So, thanks to my younger brother, he owns an events management company back in India. And, I got a chance of, seeing what he was doing during the pandemic, of course, trying to survive and, keep his company floated. With all these, there is a virtual reception and there is a virtual registration desk and all those kind of cool things. And everybody thought that, this is the future. This is going to be the future. Well, I think, most of us did not like that idea then. And I think most of us do not like, that idea still. So I think that's a very classic and peculiar example where we try to ditch that. Obviously, it was the outcome of, a situation, or force majeure. But I think that's a very beautiful example of really sticking to. Otherwise, we wouldn't be really sitting here and enjoying each other's company. And I think there is definitely a huge value in some of those. I hate to say it, but again, traditional, if so to say, platforms or whatever you call it. So yeah, that's the example I would give.
Can I give an example, not from my experience, but from my observations?
Absolutely.
You can, because this was not my experience itself, so you can go.
The reason I thought of it is because of what you said. Virtual assistants and AI can be done right. Don't do it if you can't. The examples within banking, within telco, nothing to be named, but I think majority that live in the UAE would relate to this, because to be able to have a problem with your service and not be able to reach a human is beyond frustrating. So technology is there, technology is great, but technology was not applied right, and it does drive customer frustration and it needs to be improved.
That's a recipe for 1 star, right?
Yeah. You literally at times when you're calling a bank, it's just that you want to say that, can I talk to a human being for God's sake? Just keep on taking you to press this and press that.
Absolutely.
So
I'll just give one quick example. I worked back in the days and still as one of my clients, Minister of Tourism in Oman. So when we started working with them, they told us one of the things that they usually use, which is collaborating with travel agencies from different countries. And I was really questioning if it really works until today as like a way of marketing a country. But then looking back, and evaluating the numbers, I figured that this is one of the most techniques that really brings people in as tourists to Oman. So I think sometimes we think in the technology, the world of technology, like we can sometimes, just like get over these old ways, although they might be very useful especially if we can combine both, like the old techniques and the new techniques.
And that's actually my next question. So if you were about to advise somebody, right, starting off their marketing campaign or just a new brand or whatever, and they're going to be asking you, dude, what am I going to do? What would be my priority right now? How should I get things going, right? Understanding that my point of strategy is going to digital, but then again, I still need to be driven by some sort of a traditional marketing campaign. How would you approach that person and tell that person this is this would be your priority, or this is how you're going to reconcile things, and what would be like those strategies that you could give them?
I mean, see, it's important for them to understand, like everybody said this a bunch of times in multiple scenarios and situations, that to strike a balance. Especially in advertising, I feel there is a very big thing called emotion. Like if you can
I don't feel that. Just kidding.
if you can attach an emotion to your campaign or to your strategy, your product is sold. Because there's this advertising person in India, which I'm sure a lot of people know, Piyush Pandey. He said this line that if you have emotions attached to your videos, your products will sell. So it's important for you to understand what problems as businesses and as marketers, it's important for you to understand what product you're marketing. Is it solving a bigger problem? And if it is, then how is it solving a bigger problem? It's always important for us to look at the bigger picture in terms of marketers to understand, and that bigger picture actually helps us understand what to do with this brand. Should we follow the old age marketing route? Should we follow the new age marketing route? Because if it's a product which is related to the Gen Zs, I'm pretty sure you don't have an old book with that. You just have to ditch everything and pick up a new trend every second month, because that's how that sector of the audience works. So I mean, it's important for you to understand what your business and the business what your clients wants to get into. What is he getting into? What does he want? It's important for us to first understand that and then maybe work ahead with a strategy.
Harry?
Yeah, completely agree. I think it's so important to work out actually what it is that the business is looking for or the client is looking for, and then going from there. And just sort of testing, starting and going from a small test where it might be with Reels or something different, and just going from there and learning is the most important thing. Don't just jump in at the deep end and exactly, yeah. just take everything slow and learn, because that's the best way of doing it. That would be my advice, I think.
Kamran?
I think KPI. I think it's very important that you need to define what exactly the outcome that you're expecting. And like you rightly mentioned, I think there needs to be a very fine balance, between the different tools and options and strategies available. Extremely critically important. You also mentioned one of the points about emotions, and I think we always wonder whenever you see an advertisement of, let's say, a restaurant or whatever it is, it's easy to buy in. But then again, sometimes I ponder, when you see an advertisement of a perfume, how does it, what kind of or what sort of quality or trait or product feature it can communicate. It's so tricky. And if you see, and if you study, as a matter of fact, it could be a case study by itself, and there has been a lot of studies done on perfume advertise or perfume marketing, if I can put it that way. Emotions play a very big role. So however you advertise or you market a perfume brand, it's very tricky because it's really, and same thing goes for shoes as well. As a matter of fact, if you're talking about Reebok, Nike, or whatever, they will not be talking about the kind of stuff they're using or the softness or the leather, whatever it is. It's about touching your emotions, and that's why I think even in the morning we're discussing, and we know that endorsing celebrities and all those kind of things. So I think there needs to be a very fine balance. And the second thing, like I said, you clearly need to define the KPI, what you exactly are expecting from a certain campaign.
Mona?
So KPI and call to action as well. So connecting with them on an emotional level is very important to grab their attention. Because of the short attention span on digital, you want them to do something, you got to tell them. You want them to buy now, you tell them buy now.
Yeah.
Very simple. But overall, I think every brand is different. Yes, it's absolutely business goal and KPI led that would steer our feedback on what to recommend. Budget limitations make digital the easier go-to, however, not if you're not set up properly from a tech stack and infrastructure point of view. So there is no one-size-fits-all. It's as simple as understanding, doing your research within the brand to recommend what is most suitable for them.
Maha.
I think to research your product, to research the organization, to research the country you're going to market, to understand the culture. So it's a lot of, I think, research that would really define how is the strategy can come up with the perfect strategy that would fit. So yeah, research would be my advice.
All right, so that actually wraps up our conversation, our discussion about ditching traditional rule books. If anybody has questions, you can raise it now. Yes, gentleman right there.
Thank you for the great insight. So I think I completely agree with the emotions part, but I think that applies to B2C brands. So I own a data analytics company and I run a lot of B2B campaigns. So what's your advice? And because B2B marketing is different. It's not a lot about emotions. It's more about adding business value, right? So what would you recommend? And considering like a startup like mine, with not having a lot of budgets because LinkedIn lead gen ads are quite expensive, how would what is your recommendation on working on your organic channels to get those leads coming in?
Anybody would like to start?
I can address a part of it, and if you guys would like to build on it. When it comes to B2B and being on digital, in order to stand out, there needs to be a factor of thought leadership within your content on social media channels. So tap into topics that are within your industry, create content around it, be it depending on the type of business and the favored, more favorable way of consuming, be it articles or videos or whichever format, deliver it in that way, get people to, when they think of this topic, they think of you because you've shared something of value to them.
And I'm also just very quick. I think not every B2B has the same strategy. I think it really depends on what are you offering exactly, because if you're offering a product, it's completely different than if you're offering a service. The way I look at it, like sometimes service requires more trust than a product, because when I want to have a service done, I want to know who is delivering that service to me. So it's the person behind the service. So I think, and that defines really what is the best strategy.
It'll have to be very, very quick, please, because we are well over time. Thank you. Literally, short question, short answer.
Sure.
30 seconds,
So
go.
just a counter question on the B2B marketing. I think you very well said that if you know the client, you can educate them to be there on social media and stuff. But what if a client is not there on social media and you are just establishing that first contact with the client, right? So what's the best way? Is it the social media marketing or is the traditional marketing which you prefer?
Sorry, so you mean you as an agency, you have a client and the client is not on social media, is that what you mean?
Right, so I'm a services company.
Okay.
And say I sell data and software services,
Okay.
and the client is not there on social media anywhere. So that's the very first contact I have to establish with the client, right? So what do you prefer? The traditional methodology is better or the newer one?
You mean to reach that client?
To reach that client, yes, to
Well,
engage.
if he's not on social media, the way we do it usually, try to find if anyone on that company is on LinkedIn, for example, and maybe try to reach that person, start a conversation with him, and then try to meet him in person, so you know someone. In a country like my country, everyone knows everyone, so we try to get leads from other people that we know. But if you can't do that, I think maybe even stepping to the company and trying to get just a meeting with the person, with the right person. Very quickly, I'll just say, when I started working with the Ministry of Tourism, I didn't know anyone. I had to go every day, literally knock doors. Like, I want to meet someone, I have a proposal. I have a proposal. And then that proposal didn't go through, but they gave me another contract. So sometimes you just have to show up. Like,
So
you know,
you'll-
be there on their faces every day.
So you'll say that the traditional methodology would work a little better.
We
Yeah,
have to.
sure.
Sorry.
All right.
reconnect.
So again, I'd like to just give you a quick tip: having a balance of direct marketing, traditional marketing, and that amplified on social media. That's what we did in Samsung. Actually, substantially works. Ultimately, you cannot stop the face-to-face benefits that you get out of like transacting individuals directly, rather than just like leaving it to AI or digital marketing. And I can give you more tips about that later as we talk. But again, thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and congratulations to
Thank
everyone
you.
in this panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much for wonderful panelists. And yes, there is a networking session once we finish, so you by all means grab hold of our panelists and have a little chat to them in about 15, 20 minutes time, because we will zip through the next bit very, very quickly. But amazing discussion, fantastic stuff. Thank you so much to our wonderful panelists.